Hello, today is Wednesday, May 20th, 2020. I'm Joe Schmidt from TC2, and this is Staying Connected. I recently recorded a two-part podcast series with Andrew Brown, who is LB3's managing partner, and he's also the chairman of TC2. And in that podcast series, we discussed how the global pandemic is impacting telecom usage. We highlighted some of the steps you'll want to take to keep your costs in check without limiting service performance. And we also talked about some contractual and sourcing issues facing enterprises during the global pandemic. Well, we still have some more guidance for you and another two-part podcast series to help you out. What we're going to do on these two podcasts today is provide some more tips to help you deal with your network services and related contracts during these difficult times. To do that, I'm joined by my TC2 colleagues, Larry York, who is TC2's Executive Director, and Tony Mangino, one of our other directors. Guys, thanks for joining me today. Larry, let me start with you. What have you been seeing and hearing from clients over the last couple of months?
Yes, hello, Joe. We've been hearing quite a bit from our clients, actually, given all the workplace disruption caused by the pandemic. A lot of companies are making changes to their transport and infrastructure deals so that they can better meet the demands of their employees. Whether that means reallocating bandwidth to support a larger remote workforce, more stringent diversity requirements, added backup circuits, or the need for near-term immediate cost savings. There's a lot happening.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any companies that have anticipated this and haven't had to take some action. So, Tony, what should companies be doing?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. It's good to be with you here today. So as the crazy period of pandemic disruption settles down, there's actually a pretty straightforward list of things that enterprise customers should be doing. First, you'll want to recognize and quantify the likely impact that closing sites or moving people around is going to have on how much you spend. So now more than ever, it's important to get commitment tracking reports from your vendors and to check them to make sure they're accurate. You want to give these a serious look to identify any changes in your spend so that you avoid any surprises about whether you face any risks satisfying revenue commitments in your deal.
Those commitment tracking reports, they are important, but sadly, they're not always accurate, due to any number of reasons, like accounts might be missing or spend is being tracked for some business unit that might have been sold. But regardless, you really do need to understand your spending and how it has or hasn't changed.
Yeah, for sure. Now, once you get a handle on changes in your network spend, you're going to want to think about changes in your network usage, and that means thinking about optimization. For example, are you reducing bandwidth consumption at remote offices that have now gone virtual and that may never really return to full capacity? Have you conducted a wireless rate plan optimization exercise to address new usage patterns? Think things like right-sizing plans to meet increased consumption and optimizing expensive international roaming plans to account for vastly reduced travel these days. Another thing that caught a lot of companies off guard, I think, was how to give entire workforces, not just the traditional remote or nomadic workers, the ability to reliably and securely access corporate applications and tools hosted in the cloud. Now that continuity of most business operations has been mostly achieved, we're seeing an opportunity here at TC2 to leverage and build on the experiences of the last few months to really accelerate transformational and lasting technology change. For example, I really expect that we'll see even more aggressive adoption of application-aware SD-WAN solutions that are transport agnostic as that new network edge, so to speak, is the home office with residential broadband and 4 and 5G wireless.
I think the pandemic has revealed that understanding all of that you just said, it's really critical when developing a long-term strategy for the kind of network transformation we've been working on with so many of our clients over the years. And yet, Larry, there are critical actions that businesses have to take in the short term, aren't there?
Yes, Joe, that's very true. Companies have to be implementing changes quickly to address the immediate needs of the network and infrastructure changes. But you have to do that very carefully with an eye toward the long-term impact of making short-term mistakes. Companies need to be aware that suppliers may include changes in amendments that take away your flexibility and leverage over the terms of your agreement.
So what do you mean when you say suppliers might take away flexibility and leverage over the term of your agreement?
It's a great question, Joe. Enterprises need to understand the difference between can't and won't. Let me say that again. Can't and won't when negotiating with vendors. Implementing immediate changes to your agreements through directed negotiations to get through the current crisis without using the market competitive leverage RFPs create robs companies of needed information to understand what's possible in the market. Having the real-time market data and knowing whether your supplier can't support your required changes because no one else in the market does, or won't support your requested changes because it doesn't have to in the absence of competitive threat, that is a path to a successful outcome. It's so important that companies don't lose the leverage and the benefits that were earned during their last RFP or competitive look into the market.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Companies, they need to be making quick changes. And frankly, there's just not time to issue an RFP and do a full-scale procurement.
That's right, Joe. Typically, there's no substitute for an RFP. And RFPs are the right thing to do to get an accurate view into the market and produce market-leading deals. But RFPs are only effective if you have the time. And right now, many companies need to make those changes without the time. So they have to use alternative ways to get similar information that they can take into directed negotiations right now. Going in blind without the data is just a recipe for disaster and making mistakes that are extraordinarily difficult to fix down the road.
Okay, thanks, Larry. I know you and Tony have more tips, so let's pick up this discussion in part 2 of the podcast. In the meantime, if you'd like to discuss how your company is dealing with the global pandemic, or hear how other companies are getting on, or if you have other ICT lifecycle needs that you'd like to discuss, you can contact Tony, Larry, me, or any of our LB3 and TC2 colleagues by giving us a call or sending us an email. You can also stay current by subscribing to these Staying Connected podcasts on any number of platforms, including Apple and Spotify. You can also check out our websites and follow us on LinkedIn.